Hi, I'm Ollie from Vanlife Conversions. In this build series, we'll develop this Citroen Relay into a motorhome. It's an L3H2 Citroen Relay that's 6 metres long and 3.7 metres worth of living space. We've decided on this vehicle because it's not so long that it's going to be difficult in urban areas to manoeuvre. It also gives plenty of living space for us to get all of the appliances that we wish. The width of the van is 180 centimetres, which for us gives a long enough widthways bed to be comfortable. For the design of Billy, we're going to remove the bulkhead and have two captain swivel seats with a curtain that separates the cab from the living area. We'll also have a shower located behind the driver's seat, which will be plumbed into a hot water boiler, allowing you to have a nice hot shower and a drying room for your wet towels. Next to this, we'll have a kitchen unit with a sink, a fridge, and a full hob and cooker. And then at the rear of the van, we're going to have two bench seat diner areas with a table in the middle that collapses down to form a widthways bed so that you can enjoy the views out the back doors. So the first phase of the conversion is to strip out all of the existing plywood lining and floor and remove the bulkhead if that's something that you wish to do, so that you can then prepare the external for windows, roof lights, solar panels. If your van comes ply lined, then you should use a screwdriver to remove the screws. These will be fixed into the hollow metal ribs of the van. You can use a Stanley blade to cut through any silicone that is holding the plywood together. To remove the tyre downs, I've just put a Torx bit onto my drill driver. Remove the plastic panels by using a flathead screwdriver and pliers to extract the tree clips. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to install a double fixed window into your van conversion. So we're going to put these windows in the living space of our van, which is where the sofas and the collapsible bed is going to be located, so that when we're eating we can have good views outside. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove this central rib from the van, and we're going to do that using a Stanley blade to cut through the mastic, and then some tin snips just to cut through these 4 pieces of metal which join it to the van. This isn't actually a structural piece, this is here just to stop the panel from vibrating and rattling as you're driving along. So it's safe to remove in order to install the window. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the window facing up and measure the aperture so that I can then transfer the cut line onto the side of the van. And this window actually sits inside some grooves which I'm going to use as a reference for the straight lines. So on this edge I'm going to come in from the lines 120 millimeters. This edge I'm going to come in 60 millimeters, and then from the bottom I'm going to come in 30mm, and then from the top I'm going to come in 40mm. So now that I've got those measurements, I'll transfer those onto a piece of tape which I'll put on the side of the van, and then I can mark out my cut line. So on the side of the van, I'm going to use this green masking tape which is called frog tape. It's really good because you can peel it away and it doesn't leave a residue. You can also draw on the surface of it with a pencil for marking your cut line. I've also drilled a reference hole in the centre of the aperture from the inside, and what I can do is I can use this just to check where my lines are going to be on the inside of the van, to check that it doesn't hit any structural ribs. Now that the tape's on, I'm going to take those measurements that I got earlier and transfer them onto the tape so that I've got a cut line. So I've got a square cut line marked up on the frog tape. What I'm going to do now is just transfer the curve of the corners which is on the window aperture. And to do this, I'm just going to take a piece of tape that's a similar radius to the curve, and when I'm happy that I've found one, I'm just going to draw a pencil line onto the masking tape which will represent that curve. So now I've marked out my cut line with the curved corners ready for my jigsaw, and what I'm going to do now is, just before I make the cuts, I'm just going to measure everything off of this reference hole so that I can check where the cut line's going to meet on the inside of the van, just so that I'm happy that I'm not going to go through any structural ribs. So we'll take it down from the centre, we'll measure 25.5cm and 25cm up to the rear, 63.5, and to the front, 55.5. So I've got those measurements. I'll go onto the inside now and see where the cut line's going to go. It was 25cm down, so we can see that sits within this panel here. It doesn't hit any of these bolts and nuts or anything. It was 25 up. Again, it sits below this bit of double skin here. 65 back. Yeah, is again within the panel, and 55 forward, yeah, within the panel. So now I'm happy that the cut line sits completely within this single sheet and I can make the cut. I like to use a step drill bit because it can drill holes of different sizes. In this case, it needs to be big enough to fit the jigsaw blade through. So now that I've drilled the right size hole for the jigsaw to enter, I'm going to use a metal blade on my jigsaw and follow the line all the way around and cut out the aperture. Just make sure you wear an eye protection for this, because with a jigsaw it will spit out shards of metal once you're making the cuts. So I'll do that now. Once the hole is cut, use a file to smooth any burrs on the raw edge. Okay, now that I've got the rough edge off the aperture with the file, I'm going to apply some hammerite paint, which will just prevent any future rust from penetrating into the metal. So I'm now going to prepare the glass for sticking to the van. What we've got is a primer here with a little applicator. We've got a bit of glass wipes which we'll use on the ceramic blacked out area first before applying the primer, and then we're going to use a sealant gun with this glazing adhesive to create a single bead all the way around before we then transfer it onto the side of the van. The wipe provided gets rid of any dust on the glass. Use the primer to prepare the glass for the adhesive. This process will ensure a strong chemical bond. Apply the primer onto the ceramic surround. So I'm now going to use the glazing adhesive on the pane of glass. I've cut a V in the nozzle just so that I get a good bead around the whole piece of glass without any breaks. So I'll do that now. Keep a firm, even pressure to ensure no gaps are between the adhesive and the glass. Try to run a single continuous bead over the top of the primer. Okay, I'm now going to lift the pane of glass into place and hold it firm for a few minutes before then taping it secure. Use tape to support the window whilst the adhesive sets. Avoid driving the van during this time. I like to use foil tape because it leaves no residue and does not stretch. Here's what the finished window looks like. Next on the list is to complete the roof lights and solar panel install.